I guess I never really thought about the history of Western classical music and how it has traditionally excluded women or anything like that, because we never really, classical music just was there. So when I started out, I was very, very serious student. I never talked. I got straight A's. I was a valedictorian. And I didn't know how to think about things. I knew how to give the right answer to a question, but I couldn't construct a logical argument. And I think that the best thing for me was that I went to Sarah Lawrence College, where you're in these tiny classes and you're expected to read and talk about things. And that forced me to open up and think about how all of the different disciplines that you're studying and talking about can actually connect and relate to each other. Because the way that the world works is not that music exists in a vacuum, sociology exists in a vacuum, psychology is in a vacuum. Instead, they're all interconnected. And I really do think that is why I am making the kinds of work that I'm making and why I'm approaching it the way that I am. Taking Up Serpents is a commission from Washington National Opera's American Opera Initiative. And so that particular initiative asks for pieces that are rooted in America in some way. So Jerre Dye and I were talking about what this could possibly be, and he is friends with Rebecca Skloot, who is the author of The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. And she, for a little bit we were thinking maybe we would do something with that book, but then Oprah got the rights, so that was off the table. But she recommended this other book called Salvation on Sand Mountain, which is about a journalist who's covering a trial where a holiness preacher, who's a Pentecostal snake handling preacher, tries to kill his wife by forcing her hand into a rattlesnake box. So Jerre decided to write an original libretto inspired loosely by this idea of someone who has left the church returning home. So the opera begins where we meet Kayla, who is working at a Save Mart and thinking about why the world doesn't seem to hold the mystery that it had when she was still part of the church. And she gets a phone call from her mother. Her father has been bitten by a rattlesnake and is dying. She decides to make the journey back to sort of see him and reconcile. And the piece is a journey piece. Another thing that Jerre says is that his mother should have been a preacher. And I think that you see that in the character of Nelda, who is the mother in Taking Up Serpents, that she's really the one that has the deepest faith out of the three main characters. But because she's a woman, she is never able to take on any position of power. And for Kayla also, it's how do you negotiate the demands of this faith as they're conflicting with the things that you actually want for your life. Because Kayla also at one point says, I want to preach the word, and her father is not open to that idea at all. Having grown up in a small town, I knew many, many people that were deeply involved in the church in the same way that Kayla is in our story. I went to school with them, they were my friends, and I think that there's a tendency for people, particularly in New York and in DC where the opera premiered, to sort of other the rural and deeply religious. And because I knew them, I wanted to put them on a stage in a way that felt real. And that meant not stereotyping them, but looking for what is the honesty, what is the real emotional arc of this person in a way that is true to who they actually are.